Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our third technical assistance session designed to focus on the performance report. Um, Today, we want to start off the call by informing you that we are aware of and are working on a remediation for um, the issue with zero, like for the outcome scores that are coming with the 0% cumulative actuals. Um, Even if your cumulative actual is 0 or higher than the cumulative goal, um, that is a fix that is going to be taken care of in the release after next. It will be in the system by quarter two's report, but currently it is an issue that we didn't realize is a part of the system right now, and it's something that you guys are going to have to just discuss with your coder, inform them just so they're aware that of the situation, why it's happening, in case they aren't aware themselves. But we will be working on remediate that. We just don't. It's just not possible to get it done in time for this reporting period. That being said, as always, this is a Q&A session. We ask that you feel free to drop in your questions inside the chat, especially for those performance reports that you may have.
Yeah, I'm gonna take over now that we're starting the kind of the open questions portion. And if anybody has requests for demo, we can definitely do that. I will just put up kind of I'll put up VGRS on the share screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
It's
Awesome.
a bit small.
Yeah,
Would
thank
you?
you. Yep. How does that look?
Keep going.
Keep going?
Good. Good.
Awesome. Tony, yes, it is a system-wide thing for the zeros being identified as fails. That's what it was, right, Kat? Um, and
Yes, specifically when your goals are zeros across. So if your goals are zeros across the goals for, say, for the users that are on their third year right now or second year, like any I think it would be for third year because it would be 2022 that would be zeroed across, wouldn't it? But for those people that do have the zeros across their goals for whichever designated year, it is giving you some fails when it should not be, and that is what we're attempting to remediate. Can you show what remediation zeros look like so we have a visual? Yes, we just have to find a performance report. Hold on a second. I think I could probably whip up the email. Just yes.
So
Yes.
I'm actually going to put in the chat a breakdown of the issues and what's impacted. So so you don't if you want to show, that's fine, but there's a screenshot in my right up in the, I'm not sure if it shows up in the chat, but I think it will. So if you want to I just want to say I'm addressing it in the chat, so it's up to you of how much you want to go into it here, or if you want to wait until the end.
It might be good for us to just go over it now, just so we have it. But
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things about it. So the first issue is that, or the first thing I wanted to highlight is that it's specifically if you have a cumulative goal set at 0. So that's where we run into this issue. And for most of the users that would experience this, they're likely going to be in their first year of performance, because by the time you're in your second or third year, it's a lot more unusual to have a cumulative goal set to a value of 0. So this is likely only going to be happening to if you're a first year grantee that happens to, and oftentimes a first year grantee will set like their enrollment goal for their pop Q1 to 0 because they're just starting out, and that's where you'll have that issue. And so wanted to kind of clarify that it's not likely going to affect everyone, just those that have that effect, and it will. And so we recommended that you, when you enter in your narrative module, just to put NAs for those. And so there's in the chat, you'll see there's an immediate workaround, and then there's a sort of a final resolution. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kat.
And with that, I'm turning it over to Jacob.
Awesome. It looks like we do have a hand up. Gilbert, you have a question?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
Okay, all right. So my question is related to our performance reports. So we were told that we had to have separate email addresses for those that were a part of the VGRS system. So my intake person, she inputs the participants' information, but she's not responsible for the other pieces of the puzzle. So the problem I'm having is she's already put her participants up under her email address, and it's not showing up under mine. And my things that I have put in up under my email address is not showing up under hers. And so when I get ready to do my narrative, there is nothing up under my narrative. It's just up under hers. So how do we go about that? Are we just looking at one performance report? Using hers and not mine, and I'm the administrator, so it's kind of confusing here because we don't know where to put this information. I can't put any information up under mine at all because it's not showing up the participants.
So just to confirm, you're saying you both have access to VGRS, you're both accessing the grant record, and it's the same exact grant record? It's not two separate grant records? Because that's what it sounds like to me, that you're accessing two different grant records and updating them. That's why you can't see each other's updates.
Well, we're both under, yeah, I'm assuming so, because I don't see her updates at all. And my thing is that they're not flowing over into my account or, into my database where I can go in and complete what I need to complete. Because
Sarah, I think I might have.
Yeah, she only inputs the participant information. That's all she does.
I suspect I think I might know what's going on here. So it sounds like maybe what happened is you created a performance report, and then your colleague also created a performance report, and you are independently entering in narratives under the ones that you created. But the way the system is set up is that the performance report is created for the entire grant. So what you want to do is you want to both be, so if she's entering participants and enrollments, that's fine, that will not be affected. That's going to show up when you create a performance report. So you just want to make sure that if you're both entering information into it, that you're working off of the same one.
Okay, that's not what we were told in the beginning, that so she went in, when she goes in, she did it up under her email address. So basically I need to go, I guess I need to go up under her email address because well, she put in 179 participants. That's not showing up under mine.
That could be because you guys created a performance report before entering your participants in the first place. So it sounds like two things, potentially, that you're looking in the performance report record while the updates have been made directly in the grant record itself. If that's the case, if you can, if I were you, the first thing I would do is confirm this by going into the grant record directly from your performance report. Jacob, can you load up a performance report record and show them like where that link is to, you could just click on performance reports.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just open up a performance report record. So in your record, you would have the link to your performance report right there on the left. You see that's that the one that actually, your grant record. Just click on that, return to your grant, go to your participants module, confirm that all of her data is there. In this example, because we're in a test environment, we don't have any data for this grant record, therefore you're not going to see any data. But in your case, you should be able to see data here, because you said that she input 116 participants, so therefore you should be able to see all 116 listed here. It'd just be shown 10 at a time. If you can confirm you see that, then what you need to do is create a new performance report record. In the training back August, I think, I had made that clear that all the data, you have to complete your data input in a grant record before you create the performance reports. Otherwise, you're going to have a gap in data. Everything
Okay,
that shows up in your performance report record is everything that was there in your grant record at the time of creation. So that timestamp of you creating it is everything that you had input there. So if she had only had the time to put in 16 people, you're only going to see 16 people on your performance report record. And so just confirm that you guys have just access to the same exact grant. And once you confirm that, then you can go and create the new performance report.
okay, that's what it is. Yeah, because she just inputted a certain amount and then she did another one. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, so make sure, like, before you or anybody else on this call, before you go to creating a performance report record, make sure you put in your budget, your personnel updates, your participants information, then go create that performance report, because you're always going to have an issue. There's always going to be a gap in knowledge. There's going to be something that's missing in that performance report, and you're going to have to keep recreating, and that's a pain. And I can only imagine how annoying it would be to do so when you see like your scores aren't aligning to what they should be, and having
Okay.
to update those modules. But yeah, so I would go to your grant record, confirm that you see those participant information. If you don't see them, then it might be you both have access to the incorrect grants, and that might be the issue. But I feel like based off what you're saying and what Kay had clarified, you're looking at two different records, and like the one's looking at performance report, one's looking at grant, and you just need to go and create a brand new performance report if you've confirmed that your budget, personnel, and participants are all up to date.
Okay, yeah, so everything is up to date and my participants are correct. I just need to go in and do another performance report so that I
Yep.
can do the narrative. Okay.
Yep.
Got you.
And that's going to give you the
Okay.
correct scores.
All right, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
No problem.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just real quick,
go ahead.
following up on Kate responded to, is there a way to enter in two emails on the same grant so both can have view of report updates? Yes, and to add on to that, you'll also get any like notification emails for the report moving up and down as long as you're assigned to the grant. And all people assigned to that grant will get those updates. I think Morgan had a question in chat. When we enroll a participant and only have squares to verify their veteran status, how can we add them in VGRS if military entry date and discharge status are required fields? This information is not always on squares, and getting DD 214s might take longer to receive than the 5 days you all are wanting us to put participants in the system. I'm not quite sure exactly on this one, but we can at least get to the spot here.
Jacob, I'll just jump in on that one. Please speak to your coder about that, because one of the reasons that military discharge date is not required, but the entry date is because it was related to being able to confirm that they were a veteran prior to receiving services. But we know the discharge date was an issue with squares. So, and I apologize, I'm not sure I'm communicating the exact issue, but if you do have that problem, please speak to your coder. I believe they should be able to clarify the rule based upon the eligibility requirements under the new VPL. And if it does turn out that is something where it is stopping you from being able to end your enrollment, we can confirm and go back and see if we need to make adjustments to that field. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Any other questions out there? I think we've got caught up on all of the ones in chat. Well,
I
Alexander
did see
just.
one question.
go ahead.
Jake, I'm sorry, it was further up in the chat. Somebody was asking if there's a way to export their enrollments. Alina asked that question. Elena, sorry.
Believe you can. Yes. So if you go into the participants module, and let's find a better example here. Maybe one with some participants so we can take a quick look at it. Maybe this one. Nope. Sorry. Should have we have an outcomes test in test cat. Let's do this. We'll go into dev. Find one easier in there.
In depth, you could find 116, but that is I terminated that grant, so you'd have to remove the terminated filter or active filter. Sorry.
Yeah, I think outcomes test one, or like the outcomes ones, have a bunch of participants in them. So yeah, the way you can export enrollments data, the best way is you go into the participants tab. We can click the show tabular view. And then we have all these options: participants, enrollments, training, services received. So we can go to enrollments information. It says all of the enrollments that have been entered on this grant. So you can see we have 57 enrollments. We can go, there's a button right here, it says export to Excel. We can just click that and I'll get a download. We can open that file. 1 second. And you can see all of your, well, yeah, as long as it doesn't get lost here. Where'd it go? There it is. And you can see it exports all of our enrollments with all the fields that you can see in VGRS that you guys have inputted. It also captures a timestamp for you. So, if we go ahead and update later, we can, verify that this timestamp is now, like, this export is now on a date, and we can go and re-export it. Sweet. Any other questions in chat? Alexander asked, if the grantee has placed data under future quarters, does that affect the current quarterly report at all? Do we need to send the report back and ask them to remove the data? If so, do they need to leave the data blank or input zeros? I'm thinking zeros may affect calculations. I don't believe that will impact any of the outcomes measures. Outcomes only calculates up to the current quarter. Like, it'll show a number, but it only calculates up to, like, and this is a PY 2020 grant, so it's calculating all the way through. But if it was a PY 2023 grant, it would only go up to Q1 of the second quarter year, which should be good. Angela asks, are the carryovers from last year's grant, year 1 of 3, entered the same way as the Q1 participants of this year's grant? Believe carryovers are not the same as they used to be.
So carryovers as a concept previously was bringing it from one TPR to another year's TPR, and you'd have to designate that they are a carryover. And VGRS, we don't have any such field because we collect data from the beginning to the end of the period of performance. Therefore, you don't need to designate them being as a carryover and just enter them as you would any other regular participant. Go ahead, Angela.
So in that case, if we have carryovers from last year's grant, we won't designate them as carryovers. We'll enter them as participants. Will there be any issues with entering one of those folks with an older date, or should the date be July 1 of 2024 for those participants? Because obviously the date would be prior to this year's grant. In addition to
that's totally fine.
that's fine. Okay, so just maybe put like July 1 for all of the ones that are carryovers. Again, we're not using that term, but
I don't think you even need to do that. I think just having them with their original enrollment date is more than suffices.
okay, so
Because a
it'll be able to
carryover-
take that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, it'll take them. And then, but if I understand the concept of carryovers correctly, I believe they are participants in which you never closed out in the previous year, and therefore they were pulled into the current year and are active ongoing enrollment. So therefore there's no need to even put them as July 1st. You could just have them as like say if they're June 15, you can have it as June 15th as their enrollment date and just keep it going until
Okay,
they
and
exit.
Okay, may I have one more follow-up question to
Yes,
that?
go ahead.
So if we have carryovers, again, I know I'm using that term, I'm sorry, participants from last year's grant, and for some of those people, the contact where service has been provided is over the 90 days. Does that mean in this Q1 report, if we haven't had contact with them over 90 days, that we have to exit them even if they haven't got employment?
You don't necessarily have to exit them, like in case you know that you're going to keep working with them, but I think it is advised for you to do so because they've just been inactive with services and trainings and all of that.
Okay, because I do get
feel
an
free
error
to correct
message.
me.
Katara, I'll just jump in real quick on that one. Sorry. So according to the official policy rule, yes, you would in theory exit them, but we also know that sometimes more than 90 days passes and you know you're still going to need to provide services to that participant. So we would, we don't want you to have to do a lot of back and forth. If you know it's likely that that participant is going to be coming back to you for services within the next quarter, you're okay to kind of to leave them unexited. But if you truly think that you're never going to hear from this person again, then yes, the rule is like you should exit them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure thing.
No problem. Adriana, go ahead. Adriana, you will need to accept the recording or being recorded message before you can unmute. Okay, I'm going to assume you're stepped away. Does it, one second, let me check the chat. Are you adding PY23 with PY24 for outcomes? Shouldn't the outcomes be per year, 4 quarters, and not including PY24 quarter 1 data?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Adriana, I can hear you.
Okay. So the question that I have and the clarification that I'm needing is that last year, PY 23 was the third year for us. So we did our closeout. With the new system, we are still working with clients from last year, right? But if carryover went away and we're not tracking quarter 5, 6, 7, and 8, what do I do with the veterans that I've been working with from PY23? And I've asked for clarification on this, and I received a response as far as transfer them with the start date of 7/1. But I would really like some clarification on how exactly we would handle the veterans from last year and how we're expected to track and report on them with our closeout and everything.
Katara, I'll jump in on that one as well. Thank you for that question. So when you have a grant that closes, so the one that you spoke of, the previous one that ended on June 30th, you no longer, your follow-up reporting at that point for that cohort falls off. You only have to report up to, the Q4, right? So the 6/30 date, because that grant has closed. But we recognize that you will, when you receive a new award, you will continue to serve those participants. So what you were supposed to have done, and sometimes it doesn't happen, but is exit all of those participants. Regardless, everybody gets exited from your closed grant, and then the ones that you are going to continue to serve, you would essentially treat them as new enrollments in the new grant, and with a start date of 7/1. You still have to assess eligibility, and then at that point, so you're talking about for those that were placed into employment prior to 6/30, you do not have to it doesn't hurt to continue, obviously, to check in with them, things like that, but you don't have to report that, if that makes sense. So that's kind of that part's over. So you can start fresh with the those that were enrolled as of July 1 under your new grant.
Okay, so just to be clear, I was waiting on clarification for this. The first time I asked this question was in like the beginning of August, end of July. For the first quarter of our new grant year, we met our goals. So then my question becomes the people that we now have to re-enroll, right? How is that going to impact my numbers for the duration of this year? Because I met my enrollment numbers, but now I have these that I have to also put into the system for re-enrollment or transfer, so we say. You see what I'm saying? Like how
if you provided a service, you should be entering that participant into VGRS. And what that means is if you went over your goal, that's fine, because it gives you a little bit of a cushion if for whatever reason later on in the year you aren't able to have as many enrollments, if that makes sense. So there's no disadvantage.
It's not like negative, right? I'm not going to be impacted negatively for having more than the amount of enrollments.
Oh no, not at all. It's because again, you want to report that you're providing services to these people, right? So that they are. So you want to make sure that you're getting credit for that, and it aligns with what's your expenditures, all that good stuff. So you definitely want to make sure that if you provided a service, you should enter them into the system.
I appreciate you clarifying that for me. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Looks like Gilbert has his hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Deirdre Gilbert again. My question was kind of similar to that. So we were looking at the goals partially met, and we met the goal, but it's showing that it was only partially met as enrollments. So we did what we needed to do to meet the goal, but according to how this system is working, it's adding all of these things up. It's adding last year, PY23, and the first quarter of PY24. And so basically it's showing that we didn't really meet the goal, and we're going to have to give a reason why we have this score here. And we have two of those like that under the goals partially met, where we actually met those goals according to what we put on our goal sheet.
Yeah, so I believe enrollments looks at the percentage of your cumulative goal. So it's looking across the whole period of performance of the grant. So like meeting it for the specific quarter is fantastic, awesome. And we can look at goals here too. Oh, sorry. This one is must be broken in dev. But let's see if we can take a look here. Yeah. But yeah, like that's not gonna fully impact whether the goal is met on a cumulative level across the whole period of performance.
Okay, so I'm not really understanding because as she stated, we're supposed to meet quarterly goals, right? According to the goals that we
I'll-
sent in to you all. And
I'll-
from PY23, we don't have the same type of info. You know, we're not doing the same thing that we're doing now because this is our first year of our new grant. So we're like in our first year of our new grant, but you're using PY23 where we finish our 3-year grant out. So those numbers shouldn't be connected to PY24 Q1.
Deirdre, I'll just jump in real quick. This is Kate from Vets.
Okay.
So two things. One I want to clarify is that, and it can be confusing if you've been a long time grantee. So your goal. So I wanted to hit on the point about quarterly goals. So quarterly goals are actually they help build up. They help us calculate the cumulative total, but you are scored based upon your cumulative goal. So that's why if you pull up your old TPR and you go to the goal to the actual tab, you'll see that we calculated out cumulatively. So they do build up over time. But what is different about VGRS is for the first time, you're seeing what that looks like across program years. Because under the old TPR, that Excel workbook, we were limited to single program years. And that's why it can be a little confusing because you're used to essentially having that slate wiped clean every PY. So your enrollments for Q1 where the cumulative goal was that, that single quarter. But with VGRS now, it builds up. So that's one thing I wanted to address. The second thing, if you're saying that your actual goals in the system are wrong, then yeah, we can confirm that to make sure it should reflect what you your last approved goals chart. So that we can make sure is correct in the system. If you want to just I think I might have one of your old emails to check and see the grant number. We'll go in and check that. But so like if you're saying, so if it so happens that they are the same ones as your old grant, that might be why it's looking the same, or for whatever reason they were entered incorrectly, and we'll confirm that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Mandy had, I think, kind of a follow-up question in chat. How would DOL, when reporting, like us to write our performance reports? I assume this is like the narrative section. In the past, we wrote off quarterly. However, now it looks like it's off of cumulative of the whole grant. For example, we overachieved our placement rate quarterly, but due to Q4 PY 2023, it shows we failed. Are we writing for the entire grant or quarterly? And should we also note our outcomes for the quarter one as well? I think this might be more of a Kate question, but just to kind of take a stab at it. If you have like a placement rate cumulative that's still failing, but you've met it for this quarter, it's going to show up in your fails, but you can kind of answer to like, is this score related? Yes, it is. Oh, but we're doing these remediation things, and this quarter, like you can see, our quarterly goal was achieved. So we're back on track, and we're making the right steps towards getting the overall cumulative goal back to where it needs to be. Kate, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I did. I'm responding to Mandy in the chat, so this will be on the record as well. But I just wanted to clarify, that under the TPR, your scoring was always based off of the cumulative goal through the end of the reporting quarter to date. Again, it did have somewhat of a refresh every program year, but throughout that program year, it was the cumulative goal. So there should be no difference in how you're responding in your TPN, at least as far as addressing, we saw this change happen last quarter. We're going to try to address it in the next quarter kind of thing. So just wanted to clarify that and try to, and if that still gets confusing, again, you can send a note to the VGRS at dol.gov, and maybe we can do some screenshots or things to help. But that's really kind of the bottom line. It's always been cumulative through at least the program year, and now VGRS showing it across the period performance. You have a red for PY23 Q4. If you were red, if you were not red in your TPR, but you are in the Excel workbook, but you're red in VGRS, the only thing I could think of is that it's possible that you have some PY23 data that you still need to enter, and that might be why the score is off. So that's all.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Jacob.
I'm gonna totally botch your name, but Raleigh has his hand up.
Yes, it's Raheli.
Rahel, I'm so sorry.
No worries at all. So just trying to get a good understanding of how our cumulative performance is being scored. So like for what everyone's been asking about, the quarterly performance reports. So our quarterly reports, if we're looking at, how do I phrase this? Are we going to be, let's say we don't make enrollments or placements or some outcome that was planned cumulatively, like maybe up through maybe third quarter, let's say. And so how is this being scored? Like whether or not you might be placed on a cap or something, because if it's, is this just to get an overall view of the entire award over the course of the, award period, the 3 years? Or is it still, is that cap determined off of the 3 years performance, or is it still just off the current program year that you're working? Because the way it's displayed here, it does feel like, oh, okay, like maybe your reporting is not calculating correctly because it's cumulative for the entire award period of performance versus just the program year. And I think for me, that's kind of where I'm getting a little confused, because I understand like the cumulative performance is what has been calculated off of, but like, is that now changing from just cumulative for the program year and becoming cumulative for the entire period of award period for the entire 3 years?
Yes. Oh, yes, you got it.
Okay.
That's exactly what's happening. Yep. And the reason is because I just want to clarify that technically has always been true. It's just that the Excel workbook that we had limited us from being able to do that. So now we can finally show like the true period performance. But yes, you nailed it. That's exactly what the difference is.
Okay. So when we're submitting our quarterly reports, that used to be the TPR and TPN, and we're submitting those outcomes for the quarter, we need to begin calculating for the entire 3 years of our performance versus just looking at our current year and how that's going to add up. So we're looking at our entire award planned goals to add up for our end of the award outcomes versus just the program year. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and the scores outcomes module will show you. So we wanted to make sure that you could actually, rather than just seeing like the color or the percentage, you can actually see how it's calculated, right? So yeah, hopefully that'll help to kind of understand, because it is confusing. And I just put a link to the desk guide that if you really want to get into how to be able to, I think it's important for you to be able to follow the math and do your, to confirm, because there might be a glitch, right? You never know. So that hopefully will help explain how that number is derived, if that helps. But yes, that is the case.
And sorry, final question, and this might be something that we need to post to our coders or not, I'm not sure, but so with that transition, is there, do you know if there's some type of, because we've worked for so long working off the program year and breaking that down into quarters and being like, okay, well, we can make this up at the end of this quarter to meet our cumulative goal for the year, now we're needing to do that for the entire award period. So is there some type of lenience, like if we are overshooting, then that's cool. But if an agency is, you know, didn't perform as well, is there some type of like transitional, I don't know, I want to say learning curve or like leverage that will help us balance out those projections, since we've been projecting to make those up within the year and not for the entire 3 years?
I will defer to Gerda on that. I will say it technically it has that requirement has never changed, but you're right. When you're used to dealing with an instrument that did it every PY, it does feel a little bit different. For those of you that are, I will mention, for those of you that are in your 3rd year of performance, we did zero out the goals for PY22, so that's not because we didn't want you to have to enter in that data. So that piece of it is just wanted to clarify, you're not getting dinged for that. But depends, and if you're in your 1st year, then it's really you're not really being affected by this issue too much. So it's really only kind of a different mindset for those that are likely in your 3rd. Because if you're in your 2nd, again, you've already got the 1st year under you. You've only had 1 program year's worth to deal with. So it's really kind of only, I think, the big impact is on the 3rd year grantees to kind of get that mindset of the cumulative goals coming in. But yes, speak with your GODR and possibly work with the NVTAC as well to see if there's strategies that they might recommend on that one. But yes, please speak to your GODR on that. I don't want to get into individual case by case basis, but yes, that's an option.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure thing.
It looks like we've kind of caught up on all the questions in chat. Does anybody have a question, a request for a demo? Tara, yeah.
Okay, so my question is in regards to follow-ups. Without going into each individual one by one, is there a way that we can run some type of report or print something out showing each individual that we've completed more from overall, opposed to literally going in person to person by chance?
I'm sorry. So you want to be able to like export
Follow-ups.
Oh, follow-ups? Yeah.
Yeah.
We could definitely do that.
And Jacob, I think you might even be able to not have to export it. I think if you just go, the tabular
Yeah.
view should work. Yep.
Absolutely. You should be able to do both. You should be able to check out all of your exits and follow-ups. And so again, we're in the grant record. We're going into the participants tab, and then we're going into the tabular using this little toggle filter. And you have the exits and follow-ups like category of the tabular. And this will show you all of your exit information for the grant. And again, same thing, like you can use this export to Excel if you'd like to export it. You can search, you can filter down, all that kind of good stuff. You only want to see your place into employment people.
Yeah, I wanted to see if, like, let's say, for instance, I was following up, 2nd quarter after exit. If there's an individual in there that we don't have information, so we know, oh, we need to jump back into his and put in that update.
Yeah, so earned wages 2nd quarter after exit. I usually like to, yeah, you can actually, so you can filter by yes, no, unable to contact, but if you want to see which ones are blank still, you can also like use the headers of the column, and you can sort it by ascending or descending. So the easiest way to do it is to sort it twice, and you'll see these blanks. These are your people who you don't have anything recorded for quarter 2 after exit. And same, you can do it with any of the various quarters.
And And Jacob, just one more thing. There's actually another filter you could use to even make this even easier is if you like, so let's say for instance, obviously, we're doing PY24 Q1. So that would be when you are doing second quarter after exits for, oh my gosh, I think it's it would be PY23 Q2, right? So yeah, that would be, right? Is it 3 or maybe it's 3? I'm trying to remember which one. Yeah. So you can filter by the exit quarter, and that will it to just those that you would expect to be reporting back on.
Something like that. PY exited and quarter exited.
Yes, exactly. So I just wanted to mention that too, because that helps to limit it even more.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. A bunch of different ways when you have all these options to kind of get to where you need to go. Any other questions? Robert asks in chat, I heard participant cap will automatically adjust if your org doesn't meet its cumulative participant goals. Will this also adjust if there's an influx of participants? I think this is more of a policy question. And something that would be good for a goater.
And Robert, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what you're saying is if for whatever, if you're under your goal, if you're like, say you fail, right? You don't have enough enrollments to be able to meet your goal, it'll be red, right? And that's true. It will automatically show up in the narrative module as a red indicator for you to enter your cap related answers. But if, let's say, in quarter 2 or 3 you end up having you're able to get more enrollments in, yes, it will. The scores the outcomes scores will automatically adjust, right? It'll because your cumulative goal, let's say in Q2, is again lower than the total amount, then yes, it'll turn green and you won't have to enter in any cap related information in the narrative. So yep, that's how it'll work. As essentially, if you don't want to get behind too far up front, because I think just like you said, you'll have to kind of try and you have to kind of try to make it up later. And if you're able to do better up front, that gives you a little bit of wiggle room later on in the period of performance.
We had another question in chat. For the personnel tab, can you please explain how the cumulative percentage ranges maybe are totaled, since we are looking at the entire period of performance rather than just annual? Let's go take a look. Cumulative percentage ranges are totaled. No worries. I'm not quite 100% sure what you are referring to in terms of how they're calculated. Because
Sure.
it just looks like, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I can explain. So when entering the personnel and the percentages that they charge to the grant, I had gone to the outcomes tab and just did like a preview of outcomes because I didn't want to submit a quarterly report without kind of getting a good summary of what I was submitting. And so I just did like a preview to look at it. But percentages for personnel, and maybe I was just looking at it wrong because I wasn't thinking in the concept of our entire award period. But when we go into manage personnel and we're entering specifically a percentage for the quarter, on the, let's see, so let's say for the first box or the first widget for one position, it'll say percentage of time, and it'll have like a percentage of, I guess, is this showing what has been charged thus far of what is allowed, or how much the individual has charged for the quarter only? Is that cumulatively adding up, or like, are we adding up to that 100% of what is allowed for their charge, or are we subtracting from that 100% that's allowed for their charge, if that makes sense. I guess I'm
Gotcha. Yeah. So this like the position percentage of time will be according to kind of what was submitted to like as a part of the grant application. So like, you know, if you're gonna have this position and they were gonna be full-time on the grant, your goder will enter that amount for that position. And then for individual employees that you have, like let's say we have 2 employees that are working the same position, you enter their kind of percent of time that they work the position for each quarter. So like let's go ahead and actually just add in an employee. And some of these are broken. I apologize. So they started one just 24, and we'll say they haven't ended yet. But like let's say winner was where he worked 75% of the time for the quarter, and then he went on vacation, and our test person worked 25%. So that's how you would kind of get back up to your 100% full percentage of time for the position. Then you also have this grid here, which will show you, it'll add up these two, and this is your cumulative across all of your employees who are working that position. And then you'll be able to also tell what's the difference between kind of what was set out to be worked by that or worked for that position versus what you have recorded. Does that all make sense? Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, that does make sense. I do have one special case. So one, like maybe I have 2 people that were assigned to just like case management, employment specialist type of position. One person was on vacation for a bit, and so they don't, like, we did have someone covering, but then the other person who was out, do we put in 0 for their percentage for that quarter that they weren't, like, so if they didn't charge at all to the HVRP grant for that quarter, do we put in like just 0 it, or do we leave it blank? Because when I tried to 0 it, it came out to a weird, I don't know, percentage at the top, and I just wasn't sure if I was doing it correctly.
You mean at the top here? Because the position stuff shouldn't change as you input stuff into employee. It will only change down here in the grid.
Okay. Yeah, it adjusted in the grid. And oh no, the percentage time. Yeah. So the individual
like 100 people on the call were asking questions.
oh, okay. The individual they had worked, so let's say their percentage of time was put in for PY23 for that entire year. And then during the last quarter of PY23, they may have been off. So there's no percentage that they charged for HVRP during that time. And when I left that PY23 Q4 field blank because they were not charging to the grant at that time. I don't know, the percentage did not adjust for the percentage of time. So I wasn't sure if that was correct or not, like should have decreased, or it's fine for it to have not made an adjustment to that total.
Kate, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say we might, if you wouldn't mind sending us a screenshot of that, just so we can make sure it's not something on our end that we need to check on, like the math piece. But I did also want to clarify that I appreciate you entering in I think the personnel data for prior quarters, but you actually don't have to for PY23 and so if you're period, yeah, so because you technically did submit that under the old TPNs, right, for PY23. So you only have to enter your personnel data from PY24 Q1 forward.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. And yeah,
Sure
I'll send
thing.
that screenshot. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so that's the one place we could be forgiving on, because unlike data entry. But yes, so at least you can do that there. Yep.
And I do believe you can input zeros into like a quarter for a specific employee if they don't work any at all there.
Okay,
I
I'll
think you
try
can
to
also leave
refresh
it
it and do it
blank.
again. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly which one we fully decided on, but I believe zero input does work. Like we do validate in a lot of places against zeros, so I think that does still work as an option. Any other questions? Only got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody we have 4 minutes left of this session. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or raise your hand at this time.
Hey, Tara, I did want to quickly ask, do we have an ETA on the YouTube videos yet for being able to share the prior TA
I
sessions?
have no idea. I don't know what the general OPA email is, so I can like ask for that. But the first one, I do have it uploaded. What I can do is request for the first one to be uploaded onto the VGRS page. Hold on a second, Jacob, I'm gonna give you that link right now. Just so you guys can see what we're talking about, and so he can show you that. I can have that one uploaded onto the page because we do have the YouTube link. I've just been waiting for the second one that I haven't requested it to be listed.
Okay.
So sorry, like I don't know who I'm supposed to reach out to because I know there's a
Oh,
team
that's
and I don't know what
no,
they're
no
working
worries.
on.
I just wanted to let the team know we haven't forgotten. We're still working on it. But we know at least one will be up fairly shortly. So we will get those out to you as soon as we can.
Yeah.
The first session listed, hopefully, like as Kate said, shortly. And then the second I get that second YouTube link, I'm gonna submit the request to update this page as well. But I don't know when that will be. Unfortunately, I've had it in the queue for a while. I don't know why this one's taking longer than the previous one. Sorry about that. As a reminder for time, we're 2 minutes before we end the session. If you have any questions, comments, or requests for demonstrations, now is the time. Feel free to either raise your hand or drop it in the meeting chat. It is now 3 p.m. This session is over. Thank you everyone for joining today's technical assistant listening session for the performance reports. We will submit to have this uploaded as soon as possible. Thank you all.